Hello, everyone, and welcome to a regular Tuesday afternoon edition of Speaking Moistly. With me, as usual, is my Ottawa on the ground reporter, Greg. And the last weekend, Toronto. Holy smokeronies, buddy! You getting around?
Are you with the turtleneck? Yes or no?
Yeah, I like it. I like
Good.
it. I like
Good.
it. It's
We're
like
with the
Don Cherry. It's
turtleneck.
very Don Cherry.
This turtleneck is the issue of our time. So that's the most pressing issue right now
Indeed.
is
Yeah.
the turtleneck.
I was talking with the fakeologist yesterday, and he was talking.
Fakeologist?
Yeah, he's got a YouTube channel, and he invited
Okay.
me on. And
That's a good
so I was
name.
talking with him. Yeah, it was a good name. I was talking with him, and he was talking about how your man on the street stuff is like top notch. And I used to love man on the street stuff. Remember when Jay used to go and do like,
Yeah, sure.
right? Like, or Letterman would do the same thing. And like back in the
Yep.
90s when people were like, oh, you think the same thing as me. And like Twitter didn't exist. So you couldn't be on there and have like 500,000 people agree with you. So like people really like that man on the street stuff. What's the feeling like in these protests? Are people worried that the government is taking names and if something happens, an emergency by the definition of the government, which is, some rapey truckers, maybe, right? Okay. Allegedly rapey truckers, according to Mark Mendocino, right? Any emergency at all, really.
Yeah. So I'm definitely going to keep doing the on the street stuff because it's a lot of fun. And it does feel like a kind of unique format in that it is live and it's doing the interviews at the same time with like a little lav mic, and the lav mic is very good at isolating the sound, so it's like a good quality like interview.
Yeah.
But yeah, I feel like it's it cuts through the narrative of whatever they want to say about on the TV, right? Because you're asking, oh, what's down there? It's like, well, there's a lot of normal people. There's like just a lot of normal people who don't want mandates, period. Like that is it.
Yeah.
And the only thing that's most notable is that most of these people have been affected one way or another, or they have kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like it's either they've or they just get it. Those are probably the three categories. People who just get it, they see the writing on the wall, they're like, this is bad, we need to do something. Or in the middle, they have kids and they're like, their maternal or paternal instinct is kicking in. We need to do something about the future of this country. Or it's the third one, and like they have been gravely affected by mandates in one way or another.
Right. Well,
whether
I mean,
watching their family get ripped apart, whether it's losing their job, whether it's watching somebody else lose their job. Like those are pretty well the three categories.
Yeah, well, and having that on the ground, on the street, that's one of the reasons why I do my call-in show on Sundays, like the come out and chat with me about, what you see happening. And like often we'll get people who are live streaming what's happening during the show, like convoys and all that kind of stuff. So like, yeah, I love the man on the street medium. And I think that it tells a story that the mainstream media is desperately trying to not tell, like if they can tell you, like, pay attention, it's kitten day, yay, yay, celebrate kitten day, and not actually talk about anything material.
Yeah.
That's a win for the,
I want to go. I think I want to go to the Ukrainian protests as well. And just kind
the
of
legal one.
Yeah. Well, whatever. And just kind of go with like a few loaded questions about, I mean, I'll do my research, but essentially just like singular fact that has to do with the conflict. Hey, did you know about this? And be like, oh, okay. So 95% of the people here don't even know like the significant issues of the conflict over there.
Well, I think most of the people don't know what the significant issues of the conflict are. Like
I'm not saying I do. I have a Russian friend, my cameraman, Igor, Igor. And it's like, he tells me like, yeah, it's like no one's really kind of going into any amount of nuance here on the actual NATO and Russia and blah, blah, blah.
Right. So like, well, and I mean, I go in depth about this on my show earlier today, like today and yesterday I've been talking about it because it kind of ties in with the fake news stuff. Like they're spinning a narrative that is not true. And like the narrative that they want to spin with the Russia invading Ukraine is that this is Putin being crazy and expansionist. And like he's saying crazy things and he doesn't make any sense. He's not rational. He's lost his senses. Right. But then the reality of the situation is Putin himself has been trying to negotiate with NATO for years to stop them moving NATO states closer to the border. They've been rebuffed. There was an armed coup in 2014 backed by NATO. And Russia was we don't want to do it. Like,
sorry to cut you off, but you know what happens? It's like Like,
Yeah.
like most normies are just like
I know.
NATO, the geopolitics, boring. I don't want to learn about that. Pretty sure
Yeah.
just
I think
Putin
people do. Like,
bad
I think
and
people
Russia
do.
evil.
See, here's
And
the thing.
that's it.
I said to my wife yesterday, I remember when I was on the Hot Fuzz kick, like, because okay, the whole central plot line of Hot Fuzz is that there's a massive conspiracy. And like, we're cool with watching a movie about a massive conspiracy. But if somebody says, listen, NATO and the Trilateral Commission, and like, and then all of a sudden people are like, oh man, not this again, right? He's probably gonna start talking about the moon, right? Like, so I don't know.
Yeah.
People just dismiss it, right? Because they've been trained to. And that's what they're being trained to do with this. Either you believe in this is a Russian expansionist war that is territorial in nature, and NATO needs to go in there and protect the democracy of the Ukraine, or you believe that NATO has been I don't know, badgering Putin for years, literally years, and refusing to do anything, and goading him on. And now that he's done something, they want to use it as an excuse to, well, do exactly what they did to the truckers and treat them just as well.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of people have been commenting on this. You've probably seen it, but just how terrifying it is to, at the drop of a hat, everyone is like, I stand with Ukraine. It's like,
Yeah,
man, how well trained are these people?
all over
This
as if
is,
overnight everybody's
it's creepy,
jab.
man.
Yeah,
It's
well, they had
creepy.
the jab avatars in their Twitter handle thing, like
Right.
needle avatars, and then overnight they became like Ukraine flags. And I was like, what happened? Why does everybody have
It's
flags?
so creepy.
But it's
And it really
you
just feels like
demand
a
it.
glaring example of like, why do you care? Because the media told you to care. You don't care
Well,
about
that's
the
it's
Epstein Islands. You don't care about the
no.
Uyghurs. It's like, oh, that's not trending anymore. No, we care about the Ukraine now. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, it's just creepy. It's
Well, to be a
creepy
good
how,
person, you have to think that Zelensky, who's the president of Ukraine and former Dancing with the Stars winner,
yeah.
President Zelensky, is like, the best guy out there, and he's a superhero, and he's out there with his troops. And don't talk about the fact that these pictures are from 2021, and you know what I mean. Like, these are
But
current pictures.
but it truly is getting to the point where, I mean, it's such a dead horse at this point.
Yeah,
But it's really is like a 1984 moment.
yeah,
We're just beating the 1984 dead horse like so bad right now. But it's like
yeah,
uh what's the whole thing in the book? It's like, we were always at war with
yeah,
Eurasia, even
yes,
though we weren't yesterday, but we
yeah.
were. But
Well,
it's
the
like,
internet.
it's almost like this thing is like, we've actually come to the era where you will get publicly
Possible.
shamed
Yeah,
if you don't support like daily protest X.
yeah.
Like, you know what I
So I'm
mean? It's like,
learning.
you don't support Ukraine. Like,
Yeah,
next week it's gonna be something else. And it's like, you don't support this country. Yo, you
yeah,
don't support like
yeah,
gay whales. Yo, you don't support, like, it's gonna be
yeah,
some, it
yeah.
becomes this
Well,
new
it's so absurd already.
vaccine. It becomes a new sort of like, oh, you need to update your Facebook profile. What are you doing?
Yeah, yeah, yes. And people are slaves to that. So I'm learning French, and I've been learning French. I have like 1,500 plus days on Duolingo. So
Wow,
I
a
can speak
streak?
French. Yeah, man.
That's
I should
huge.
I'll take
Yo,
a
round of
screenshot.
applause. Round
Yeah,
of
it's pretty
applause.
good. It's pretty
I've
good.
only ever gotten like 3 weeks in a row.
I am
I
like the
always
top
miss one.
three. I'm literally I get a yearly email, and I'm the top 3% on Duolingo. Is that sick? That's weird.
Guys,
That's a little
like
weird.
and share this video. Mark
That's
is
the
the
name of the video
top
today.
3% of Duolingo for en français.
We
Look out, Laurentian elite, because Mark is coming
I'm
for you.
coming. I'm gonna be
Tout
able
le
to
monde.
I'm gonna be able to clumsily speak in the House of Commons. No, not really.
Hey.
But the whole thing is, I'm learning French, and I'm like, there's like level 5 or something like that, or 10 or something. I don't know. I'm in one of the 5 levels, and one of the dials, one of the lesson tile things is protesting. Like, that's language they
Oh,
want you to learn. It's like, why are the
interesting.
students protesting? The students are protesting because they're angry. The students are putting up posters because they're angry. The workers want better, what did it say? The workers want better conditions or something like that. So yeah, I'm like, it's everywhere, man. You can't learn a language without learning the language of protest, right? And like,
I do think there's globalist propaganda within
I
within
think,
Duolingo.
yeah, I
You
think
think
you might
so?
be right. Oh, buddy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
We won't go into detail, but if you have the
No.
app,
Well, I just thought it was funny. I actually resisted learning it, but you have to do it in order to unlock like the next phase of the lessons.
Yeah.
So they force you into learning. I was like, I'm going to learn as little of this as possible.
Yeah.
Because it's just crazy. It's just great. And I mean, like, it's the same as all
Yeah.
entertainment.
I'm just gonna say it while we're on the topic. There's people who are wearing like a headscarf,
Yeah.
and they look super happy. They always look super happy. Like
In Duolingo?
they look like
Yeah.
they're
Oh,
Muslim, and they
yeah.
look like they're
Yeah.
happy. And
Yeah.
then the white people look like angry.
Yeah.
Anytime there's like a white character, they're like,
Yeah.
they look like angry looking.
Yeah.
I don't know. Am
Yeah.
I crazy? I feel like
No,
that's,
no, no, no. Yeah.
I feel
There's
like it's a
certain,
pattern on Duolingo. What is the deal with that?
yeah.
At Duolingo on Twitter right
Yeah.
now. What is the
It's a
deal
little,
with
it's a
this?
little weird.
Anyway.
Well, it's the same as advertising and like movies and new television shows. Like on the BBC, there was a guy who was talking about how all the white characters are the baddies, and all the like all the sympathetic characters are like minority women,
Non-binary.
and yeah, whatever you want to call it. It's the same as like ER. When ER first came out, people were like, well, that doesn't actually happen in a hospital. That's way too, you remember ER, right? No.
Yeah, but I don't know what you're talking about specifically. What
So
never happens?
when ER came out, people were critical of it because they said it like there were so many emergencies in an episode, and they were like, that's like 4 months of work in a hospital. Like that, it's never like that. There's never a night like that. Never mind like multiple nights like that. This is just crazy, right? And people were like, well, it's dramatic license, right? And I think that it's the same kind of thing. It's not really like that.
Has that show aged well? I wonder. I know
My wife's
parents watched
rewatching it. My wife's rewatching it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but I mean, yeah, it was different eras had different levels of the same propaganda that we were talking about. Like there was, it's sprinkled to like lay the groundwork for WAP, right? Like you start with the head orderly as a lesbian, and
it's
now
all leading up to WAP. Yeah, it's all leading up to
the reason they call it WAP is because they can't actually just call it the name of the song, because people would be like, what? You can't put that on Mix 99.9.
Well, speaking of that, I remember when I worked in the radio, and there would be like, yo, here's the new hit song. And it's like, and there's like, there's so many bleeped out words.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like, this is the single. This is the single that made the airwaves. It's like, so well,
there was a turning
in it that like this verse is missing like 8 words.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of funny.
Yeah. I remember that with that Skilo song or CeeLo song or whatever it was. I can't remember that. People driving around town with it, doesn't matter.
Let's get back to it. Where were we? Where were we here? We were talking about politics and the Ukraine and the Russia.
Yeah, but more than that, no, we were talking about propaganda, and like in the 90s, there was a turn. I did want to make a point. There was a turn in the music, and in the 90s, it used to be that like Mix 99.9 had their own charting music. Like they would play, because they had to abide by Canadian rules. Yeah, so having a certain amount of Canadian whatever, so it insulated the Canadian charts or the Toronto charts.
Every radio station has that, right?
Yeah, but before like 1993 or 1994, it was a regional chart. So like not Mix 99.9, it was 102.1 The Edge, and they had like that guy who did the ongoing history, Alan Cross, ongoing history of new music, right? Like they had some great audio stuff that was in there back before, when they were like an alternative music station. And then sometime in the early 90s, they took the standard away from individual radio stations, because Canadians were listening to like rock and rock, right? It wasn't very poppy, right, generally. And then they changed it to pegged to the Billboard and Much Music charts, and then like all the radio stations basically got bought out by the same media conglomerate, so it standardized the charting stuff. But that's all going back to censorship. That's all going back to changing the culture from changing what the culture consumes. Does that make sense? Like they changed the music fundamentally from something that was more rough and rough around the edges, rocky, like think Pearl Jam early 90s, right? To, and maybe that's a bad example, but that's kind of what's in my head. And to like Mo Money, Mo Problems by 1995, right? Like you see that, like Nirvana 1993, and then remixing disco by 1995 with like talk tracks that have swearing.
I suppose the point you're trying to make here is that because of deregulation and because of kind of like the concentration of I guess, influences in the music industry. Like there's only so many people who are deciding now. Like there's less people deciding, so there's kind of more control and fewer hands to say this is what
Yeah.
the pop music is going to be now.
Yeah, it's all owned by like one or two companies, right? Radio and music and like all that kind of stuff. If you're going to look at
Yep.
charting stuff, it's like listening to television. Like there's one or
Yep.
two main companies that produce everything.
Well, one of the major things I actually learned in university was how that's kind of, I went to school for media studies, and that's kind of always been a common trend of, okay, there's a bunch of different radio stations here, different TV stations owned by different people, mom and pop shops, blah, 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 blah. And then every few decades, it's like, oh, okay, a whole
Now
bunch
there's
more
one.
are going to get bought up by
Post media.
Yeah.
Yeah. Rogers.
Yeah. I actually know that I know the American one's better than the Canadian conglomerates, believe it or not.
But yeah, that's part of the process, buying it up by corporate interests and then corporatizing the media. Whereas before you could have an anchor who, was well-known conservative or something like that. And their opinion, you're getting a conservative opinion, but it's an honest one, right? Or whatever kind of justification you have. But yeah,
speaking of which, actually, just to jump in on that point, I was watching an old Instagram story I made, which essentially said, guys, just as a reminder, when everyone on the news media has the same opinion, like that's not normal.
Yeah.
That is not.
Do you remember
normal? And we've had that in Canada basically ever since the end of whenever Sun News set. Whenever Sun News went
2015, away. 2014. Did you see? Everybody saw this. It was a YouTube viral thing where they started with one like American news channel saying our democracy is super important, and then it was the same speech, and he filled up the screen.
That's a good one. Yep.
Right. And so like you can watch that mocking, and that it's a mockingbird media, and partially because they're doing the same thing, but partially because they're mocking us more because they're doing the same thing. But that media machine is all encompassing, and they control it by controlling the input. So like if you want to come up with a show where, say, there's different parameters than what the BBC wants or whatever, they're going to say, oh, well, we'd really like to do your show, but we've got to change it so it does this instead of, your idea. And in that way, they make sure that what people expect to see is what they want them to see, right? It's commercials with, nothing but mixed race people, back to Duolingo with, a very wide representative, I guess, group of people who are represented in the app, but everybody's learning French. Like, why wouldn't I be looking at French people? Like, and I mean, like, are all of those people representative of modern day France in the Duolingo French app? I don't know. How would I know?
It probably is, actually.
These days. Yeah.
It probably is.
Yeah.
But I mean, people want to hear us talk about Ukraine and Russia, Mark. Hey, but let me start.
I don't think they do. Well, I mean, they do, but the thing is, if they listen to us talk about Ukraine and Russia, they're going to hear about biolabs and like the powers that be don't want us to talk about that, and they're going to hear about NATO and it's not about what we're being told it's about, and like that's hard for everybody. I think like the more you know about this stuff, the more you're like, how does this improve my life at all? I don't know. Does it? Let's talk about it. I'm all for it. I think it's crazy that I think that the tactics they used on the truckers to break them are the same tactics they're using on the Russians to make them look foolish and say like, we're going to win and you're going to lose because we're going to bankrupt you if you don't listen to us. And I don't know what the out here is, right? The world is being told one set of facts that I think is not based in fact. Like, this is a 100% expansionist war by Russia and Putin's lost his mind. Show me something to back that up, other than, he's sitting far away from his advisors and things, like the speeches that I've read look pretty rational to me. And the things that he's saying look like it's backed up. And the US military or the US embassies are removing pages about biolabs that were there. And you can go and read about it on CanadaReport.co on the front page, right in the center. It's all of the links to the backed up PDFs about those biolabs that are apparently being targeted and being talked about by the Russian or the Russian embassy in Bosnia.
So what Mark is trying to say is that Putin bad. Okay, that is exactly what he's trying to say.
I stand with Ukraine.
Yeah, that's it. That's the whole topic.
Yeah.
But I think in many ways, actually, we can use the Trump parallel because we kind of lived through this sort of already for how many years? It felt like a lot more than 4. Was it only 4 years? It felt like a lot
Trump?
more than 4 years for
Yeah,
Trump being
everything he did
president.
was
It felt
wrong.
like 8 years.
Yeah,
No, but yeah, like it's that whole thing where it's like Trump is the worst. If you don't think Trump is the worst, you're horrible. And
yeah,
then you ask somebody, well, do you know any details? And they're like,
yeah.
there's details. And it's like, yeah.
But then if you say the wrong
There's like
details,
there's a whole like
yeah. Well, if you're
there's
like,
a
listen,
whole
like
lot going on
it
actually.
really looked like, did you see the crowds of people chanting "We love you" to Donald Trump while he was doing rallies before the 2020 election? I've never seen any politician that adored by a crowd. And like the rallies that he would run, if you brought somebody to a Joe Biden garden picnic and a Trump rally and said, which one of these guys is going to win on November 3rd? What do you think? And then watching the stopping of the counting and all of that stuff. So if you talk about that, people are going to be like, you can't talk about that. That's fake news. And you're like, what? So you don't have to prove it. You just have to say it. And that's the power of the media, right? That's the power of even the schools are designed to make compliant children who just listen to and do what they're told, right? So, and that goes out into society, and especially with the universities the way they are now. No critical thought is taught. It's wild.
Yeah. For some reason, I'm actually thinking about something really weird, which is, why do people believe it? Why is the media so effective? And it's like, well, it's on, and people watch it, and the people making it have to reach the deadline of getting something out there, right?
Yep. Yeah, you got to feed that media machine, buddy.
So if you realize kind of like how fearfully they just kind of push stuff out the door, it's no wonder it's a bunch of, undigested crap.
Well, but they're also trying, they're trying to push a narrative. Like, it's very difficult to push a false narrative. It costs money to make things that aren't true look true, right? And so like you have to pay the right people and have the right people in the right positions to make sure that your news or your version of the news gets out there. It's very difficult to maintain that kind of illusion. And that's one of the reasons why people just simply don't believe it, right? Because it is difficult. It would be difficult to maintain that, right? To get all of these people reporting on craziness. But we're seeing the CBC say things like, well, Evan Solomon and Maxime Bernier, just before we got on the show here, we're getting into it because Maxime Bernier called Chrystia Freeland a Nazi for holding a Nazi signified scarf in the Ukrainian protest on Sunday. And other people were making the same like connections. Ukraine has a Nazi battalion that's state funded. How is it that Canada is on the side of everybody, standing on the side of the two people on this war, or of the two countries in this war? One has Nazis and one doesn't, and we're on the side with the Nazis? Weird, don't you think? Isn't that strange?
Honestly, it is, but it's actually like we've already kind of jumped the shark in Canada. You know what I mean? Like it's dude, 10 million to Omar Khadr. Trudeau once said, hey, if you are a terrorist, you get to keep your Canadian citizenship. Mm-hmm. Like, we clearly don't really have,
but not if you're a trucking terrorist.
Well, yeah, you're right. Yeah. But
that's the point.
In terms of moral fortitude, or testicular fortitude for that matter, like, it's left a building here in in our Liberal government anyway, our current Trudeau regime.
Well, and but part of that too. So Maxime Bernier and Evan Solomon were getting into it. So Bernier called Freeland out for holding the Nazi thing and called her a Nazi and said they're tyrants for doing what they did. And Solomon was like, "Oh my goodness, Maxime Bernier is so crazy. Look at what he's saying."
I really don't like that guy.
Terrible. But Bernier was like, "Why don't you talk to me about it? Why don't you talk to me about it?" Because talking to Bernier about it would give context. And Evan doesn't want to give context. He just wants to use the power of the media. And that's what he's doing, right? And not to say Bernier doesn't get it. I think Bernier's interaction with him is a good chess move and well done. But it's so interesting to watch. Even if somebody says something that's based in truth, they get called out by the media who want to be incredulous about it. Like Bernier says, like, every interview I've had with you, you've implied that I'm racist. Like, and now I'm telling you, like, these people are behaving in this way, supporting this thing, and have me on to talk about it. Let's talk about it. But they won't, because they'd have to face some uncomfortable truths.
Real quick, did I tell you about the CBC featured me as fake news?
I saw that on your Insta. I saw it on your Instagram thing. Yeah. So tell the viewers, man.
Yeah. So the day after the protest, essentially Saturday, the protest was broken up in Ottawa, and the next day I was around to see these like shameful gates and fences put up all around Parliament Hill after the protest, and all the truckers were gone. There was still a lot of protesters around, lurking around, and kind of like, and I met some of them in front of a fence, interviewed them all, did the, traditional group hug afterward. Cause, we were talking about how, these people are definitely evil now. Like these people are like, we need to keep fighting for freedom, blah, blah, blah. Had a nice group hug. And then what do people send me the next day on Instagram? It's a post from CBC News.
So there's a CBC reporter who was either stalking you or saw you all hugging, and they were like, click, and didn't get your permission and just ran it.
Yeah. Didn't get my permission.
Wow. That's amazing.
You can see my face. You can see the iconic like plaid hat with the flaps or whatever.
Yeah.
And we're in a group hug. No one's wearing masks. And the caption is like, oh, the protesters are finally cleared out of Ottawa. And there's a group of relieved Ottawa residents is hugging each other. And it was funny because all these people were sending me this post and just like laughing their head off.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Like even normies, a normie sent it to me and said, oh my God, this is you. This is hilarious.
Yeah.
And I asked, I have a top comment there being like, well, like, this is embarrassing, CBC. That's me, idiot. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they sort of changed the caption, but it still implies that we're relieved Ottawa residences.
Yeah.
But so CBC, I know I'm going to make a video about it still.
Yeah.
But I mean, CBC will just actually take images and then completely reinvent the context or emotional significance of what you're seeing.
I feel like there's a
they do that?
Here.
I don't know how often they do that, but
like, I feel like there's a sitcom here. I feel like there's like a Hogan's Heroes, or like a modern day, like, like your YouTube star, and like, it'd be like Three's Company, but it follows you and you go out and like interview people. It's like Seinfeld, but Three's Company, but just
didn't want to put the mask on. He didn't want to put the mask on. No mask. No mask.
And see. That'd be wonderful. See, right? Because
Jerry, I'm not getting that damn vax. I'm not doing it.
Uncle
There's something in it, Jerry. There's something in it.
Oh no, that's George's dad.
Yeah. And then it's like
the bro. I love the bro.
Well, the AstraZeneca. Oh no one's getting the AstraZeneca. Like that'd be the whole joke, right? Like they're talking about, oh, you need to get it. You need to. Oh, not
Kramer would get it.
Not the AstraZeneca.
See, we're missing that kind of light, offbeat kind of look at the insanity of our world. Like, the Seinfeld look at like
you're not allowed
black and white cookie. No, you can't even look at the black and white cookie. If you had the black and white cookie thing now, they'd be like, why isn't it all black?
Right. Yeah. Good question. Good question.
Today on the View.
Good question, Mark. I'm gonna pull up my turtleneck for that one.
There you go. Yeah. I don't know, man.
I think we know the heteronormative patriarchal answer to that question, Mark.
Obviously. And it's racism. Racism is why we don't have any nice things anymore.
Can we talk about not the actual Ukraine-Russia conflict, but like what I was kind of bringing up before we started the camera, which is I admittedly have not been following. I have not been following what's happening in the Ukraine or Russia. I've been seeing things trickle in to my conservative Twitter newsfeed that essentially is implying that certain media outlets are taking clips from video games, images from like movies and stuff to like reuse it as like, oh yeah, this is these loved ones kissing Ukrainian war. Oh no, actually that's a short film from 2015. Yeah. Or here's a bunch of missiles being fired. Oh yeah, that's an actual video game. Is this real? Is this really happening?
Yeah, man. Pretty much every single thing that happened in the first like 2 or 3 days of the whole war thing that was going on was all fake. Everything that everybody thought was real. Like
it was gameplay footage.
Yeah, I mean, not 100% CGI, but almost there. Like the woman with the flowers, the seed, the sunflower seeds in her pocket. All of these things, the video game thing, all of that. Yeah, all of it was totally fake. Debunked, like right away. Debunked by the video game guys going, we're gonna file a copyright claim on this because this is actually our game footage.
Can you imagine being the graphic designer
That's a big high five, buddy. That's great.
No, but like, oh, what'd you do today? Oh, I like repurpose an old image to,
Are you
inflame
saying the
this
meme
World
maker or
War
the
Three
guy who
hashtag.
originally made it? Because I think like if I was the guy who originally made it and then people were passing it off as real, I'd be like, all right, that's pretty good. I mean, don't do that. Don't misuse my work. But like,
I'm talking
well
about the
done me.
people, like, whatever news outlet published this stuff was like repurposing old images.
See,
and like
the
we're
problem
like
the problem is I don't know that it was a news outlet. There were news outlets that were duped by things. Like a Twitter user got a news outlet to report something because it was not actually real, but the
right.
news thought it was real.
And we're sure we're not getting duped. Like these,
Here,
like they actually did.
there's a whole bunch of there's I've
Okay.
had multiple threads and multiple. If you go on if you go on CanadaReport.co, you can find a bunch of them, although it's kind of difficult to find because it's organized by my head, not by any kind
and
of
you know what,
thing.
if you are a watcher of Mark Paralavis, you don't get duped because you know your stuff. You are undupable because you watch Mark Paralavis.
I try. I'm certainly fallible, man. There's all sorts of things I get wrong, I'm sure. And I try and be.
You've never been wrong. Only when I've disagreed with you on the show have you been wrong. Other than that, you've been right every single time, bro.
Somebody told me that the conversation we had where I was like, dude, things are terrible. And you're like, no, we're going to win. You got to be better. You got to be like, you've got to see it. And I'm like, no, man, we're going to totally lose. And at the end, people are like, the number of people who have reached out to me and say, you're totally right. Like, I'm right. You're not. And they're like, they're like, I want to believe Greg, but it seems like,
it's because misery loves company, guys. Misery loves company.
No, I hope
positive is just as infectious. It's just as infectious.
It's true. I hope that I'm terribly wrong.
Stop doing this. Stop. Whatever you're doing right now, stop doing it. I know you're doing it. You're doing your worry twitch right now. For the people listening, don't do that. Stop it.
Maybe. But I do hope that we correct this wayward ship. I hope there's something that knocks us back on course, because it seems like we've lost our way. It seems like we're pursuing some crazy things for no good reason, and it doesn't seem like it's going to bear us any good fruit, and there's no reason to go in that direction. So we need to stop and get on course again, and I hope we do that soon.
I just thought of another topic actually to touch on.
All right.
Once again, not something that I know the specifics of, but is it true that the Canadian government is trying to table and pass a whole bunch of bills right now while all this hoopla of World War II is going on?
Yeah. There's C10, C36, C11, C36, or C233. That's S233. S233 is universal basic income.
Okay.
C36 is
I know that one very well.
You know what that is? The free speech. If somebody thinks that you or I might have the potential of saying something mean ever on Twitter or on Facebook or on a YouTube stream or anything like that, anywhere at all public, then they could have us in front of a judge or jailed. That's C36. And
it would be the C36 would be the end of free speech in Canada, like objectively.
Yes. Oh yeah. Absolutely. 100%. And C11 is basically trying to do away with the type of journalism backspace or journalism / comedy show. Is it a comedy show? It's not really a comedy show.
C11?
Newsy talk show. Yeah. Well, like anything like Rebel or True North, anybody that the government doesn't like, they can basically target with C11.
Which used to be C10, by the way.
Yeah,
used to be C10, now it's C11.
Any program, it brings the internet under the purview of the CRTC. So if the CRTC says, Mark and Greg, really, we think that you guys aren't diverse enough. You need a woman, so we need an Elaine and maybe Baljeet or somebody. I don't know, like just for diversity and inclusion purposes. Otherwise, we can't do the show.
Yeah, it's bad news on many fronts, and they want to do this thing where they essentially force Facebook to pay money to aggregate. Is that the word?
Yeah, to take the links. And Facebook, when that was broached in Australia, Facebook was like, all right, turn it off. Yeah. And then Australia was like, oh, hold on, we're sorry. For real. But I don't want money from Facebook. I wouldn't take it, actually. I know there are people out there who would be like, I would, I'd take it if there was a structure where I could put my show on there and they paid for my ads.
The thing is the government wants to take money from Facebook, which
to then give it to me. Yeah. Right.
Well, yeah, which will then be taxed on us, the consumers eventually.
Yeah.
And that's what's so silly about it. C11 and C36 are so unnecessary. and I need to get back in. I need to get back into researching it and exposing it again, because the funniest thing about it is that everyone advocating for what's in it is like literally just like kind of like elites who benefit from, oh, we're going to force people to watch more CBC now. Basically, we're going to force people to watch more
it's trying,
like, federally funded content to make it this like self-sustaining prophecy. And then the other thing that's hilarious about Bill C-36, they're trying to make all this hoopla about online harms. If you watch these like accounts, these organizations that are talking, oh, the racism online is so, they have like no followers. Like no one cares about these groups. No, it's not a popular sentiment. It's not a popular sentiment at all. Like they're completely trying to create
manufactured.
They're not even doing it effectively. Like, because there's like nobody
there. They don't have to.
Really
that's the problem. They don't have to, because all they have to do is print it and then give it to their,
well, I mean, it comes down to Jag meets slave.
Yep.
Or I mean, Trudeau's bitch, really. I hate to say the B word, guys, but that should be his name. That should be his name from now on. Trudeau's bitch.
I saw a couple of memes with Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh in different, like their faces on different couples. And they had Princess Leia and Han, and they had, there was another one that was funny. Oh, it just fell out of my head.
It's okay.
I can't remember.
I mean, think of what we have in the Parliament buildings right now. We have Trudeau the tyrant. We have Trudeau's bitch, Bloc Québécois, the meme party, and the fake opposition party. What a mess.
Yeah.
What a mess.
We are certainly in trouble. I don't know where we go from here, but I was saying that it is one of those things that I hope we do right the ship. I hope we are able to correct course and like really meaningfully hold accountable who needs to be held accountable, meaningfully reassert our governing documents so that they actually have teeth and can be enforced, because none of that's been enforced for years.
Here's something to kind of counteract, because I know you can be pessimistic and some of you guys can be pessimistic here. The worst case scenario that you have in mind, that can't just happen overnight. It can't just happen all at once.
No, it's happening slowly right in front of our eyes, like watching a car accident. You can't stop.
Right. But along with that though, like, because correct me if I'm wrong, a lot of like your mentality is colored by this like doom and gloom. It's all going to be over. It's all going to be like, we're all going to get thrown into camps or whatever.
No. I think maybe I can explain it better. My doom and gloom is based in the idea that I'm not going to be able to convince enough people before it gets to the point where the trap is shut and we can't get out. And then me convincing, but hold on. Right. And then me convincing them won't matter because it'll become apparent anyway. You know what I mean? And I think we're very close to that. Like we're very close to that point. And at that point, your resources don't matter because your resources are null, because you're dependent on getting food from a central location, from a central whatever. Right. And so like I think that this is a 10-year plan. I think that it is supposed to roll out over the next, like, I think it's supposed to roll out slowly. We're supposed to get used to it. We're supposed to acclimatize to it. We're supposed to understand that our role is not to have rights, but to be kept safe by the government, and they're in charge of our safety. And if we're not being kept safe by the government, then we're an enemy of the government, and so on. They can turn it. It's very slow. But if you look at where we were in the 2000s, in the early 2000s, and you look at where we are now with regards to freedoms and
here's what it comes down to. Here's the
far
question.
Away.
Here's the question, Mark. Do you believe in the resilience of the human spirit?
Somebody.
It's a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question.
Yes, of course. But I think that
we got nothing to worry about.
Yeah, it's the timeline that I worry about. It's the timeline because
I'm not saying don't buy land if you can buy land. I'm not saying don't do that.
Maybe a goat.
I'm not saying like don't prepare for not
bad things.
Not
that's the problem, right? So like I'm a Star Trek fan, or I used to be a Star Trek fan, but back before they ruined it by making it woke. Hold on. The mirror universe
before we get into another,
and they were crushed as an under race, and then they rose again, right? And I'm fearful that that's the same story, and I don't want that story. Star Trek.
We have a lot of Star Trek fans who watch the show. Okay, but I think the prepping thing actually brings up. I feel like is the answer to everything, which is there is no point to worry. Prepare. and do everything you can to meaningfully prepare. And once you're done that, there's really no point in worrying. It's like, be proactive.
It's true.
Get your ducks in a row.
Yep.
And then that's all you can do.
Yep.
As opposed to.
It's true. Well, be aware of what's going on. And yeah. The doom scroll is no good. Not healthy for
No, it's not.
But I think this is a good place to wrap it up. Any final thoughts?
Putin isn't just bad. Putin is like bad. He's like really, he's like, Putin
or I like Putin.
Vladimir Putin. Mark, I'm just trying to bring up like a nuanced point. I wanted to bring up a profound sort of like conclusion. Putin, mauvais. Putin bad. Yeah.
Trey
so, no, honestly though, guys, think about that. Mull it over. Yeah.
All right. And for me, you can check out our YouTube channel, which probably after this show won't exist much anymore. Maybe not. We'll see. And you can check Greg out. Where can
so pessimistic, Mark.
Right. You're so right. Where can they find
Greg Wycliffe? Greg Wycliffe on Instagram, one word. Check me on TikTok at GDub, GDDUB, and Twitter at GDub. And on Facebook, I'm PPC Greg on Facebook.
There you go. And you can find my stuff every morning. And I upload to CanadaPoly.com. You can find our back catalog at speakingmoistly.co. And we'll see you next week.
Speaking Moist.